Hi guys, thank you again for joining me on my channel. Let's talk about sleep. We are here to talk about sleep. As I always do, I am going to let you know that my book is out there on Amazon entitled Let's Talk About Sleep. Written by me, Daniel A. Barone, MD, along with my co-writer, Lawrence Armour. So please pick that up if you're inclined. It's written for you guys to help people understand and know what to do about sleep disorders. Today I thought would be a cool topic to talk about would be melatonin. So melatonin is something we've all heard about, but it may not be as well described in various things that you read and hear about. So that's what I'm going to talk about today. So melatonin, what it is something known as a hormone, which is something the body produces to affect other parts of the body. What melatonin is produced by is the thing called the pineal gland, and that's something which sits in the brain, in the middle of the brain itself, actually right in the geographic middle of the brain, when it gets dark out. When it gets dark out, certain cells in the eye tell the pineal gland, again in the middle of the brain, to produce this melatonin. And what that does when melatonin gets produced is it begins the, let's call it the neurochemical cascade of sleep starting. So when we fall asleep, our brain doesn't just shut off. Melatonin gets produced first, then various neurochemicals are produced, things like acetylcholine and various other things. Things get shut off, like norepinephrine and serotonin, things of that nature. So melatonin starts the ball rolling with that. Normally what happens is when it gets dark outside or the lights go down and it's around evening time, melatonin gets produced, and then a few hours later we typically fall asleep. That's the way it's supposed to happen. If you look at a human in nature, right, so 20, 30, 40,000 years ago or so, when people were living in caves or in the wilderness, typically what would happen is by sundown they would be asleep or close to it, and then sun would rise and their pineal gland would realize that the sun is up, shut off melatonin, and they would begin to wake up. And truthfully, if we were not so reliant on electronic devices and technology nowadays, that we'd have the exact same situation. There's actually been a couple studies showing that researchers, when they took their students or whoever out to the wilderness for 2 weeks, I believe it was in Colorado, everybody, without access to electronics or whatever, TVs, computers, everybody fell asleep a lot faster and woke up with the sunrise when they weren't exposed to any electronics. So that's what melatonin is. Now, the reason why it's important in the sleep world, because a couple things. One, it impacts if somebody has insomnia, let's say, for example, this melatonin process becomes incredibly important. And the second thing is while it's produced by the body naturally, in the brain naturally, it's also manufactured and is sold as tablets or chewables or gummies or even liquid in some cases, and it's in a lot of these like sleepy time teas and various other things. So it can be used to help people who are having trouble sleep. So let's talk about the first part. So everybody has heard the good sleep hygiene or good sleep habits that sleep specialists have been telling the public, which is no electronics before bed, no TV before bed, no smartphones before bed, no computers before bed, no video games before bed. The reason for that is because screens that have a backlit display, and what I mean by that is if you shut off the lights, you can still see it. Screens that have a backlit display, they emit what we call blue light, blue frequency light. And what that is a very special light that's in a certain very narrow range of the spectrum that we can see. And unfortunately, what blue light does is it tells our pineal gland to stop making melatonin. Now, if you're watching TV throughout the daytime, or if you're on a computer like I am throughout the day, no problem, right? We're not going to want melatonin produced in the middle of the day. That's fine. But when you get closer to bedtime and you do have some trouble falling asleep, having that reduction in melatonin can be a tremendous burden to you, and it can make falling to sleep a lot harder. So what I usually tell my patients is this: if you have any trouble falling asleep, a good hour or so before bedtime, really shut off all the blue light devices. Okay, you can listen to music or listen to a podcast or read on paper. Right? Shameless plug. Or, meditate, which is one of my favorite things, which is another video we'll have. Listen to the news, anything you want, but avoiding the screen time, okay, for a good hour or so before bed. And definitely in the middle of the night. If you wake up and can't get back to sleep, one of the worst things you can do is check the smartphone, check Facebook, check these various things on a blue light device. Okay? So that's one thing, melatonin, where it kind of fits in with insomnia. The other thing is, as I said, it's produced as let's say a pill form or some other way to ingest it. What I tell patients, it's almost like a vitamin, right? So the body produces some of these vitamins that we take as a daily supplement, and that's okay. You take the supplement to supplement what your body or what you're intaking normally anyway. So melatonin is kind of like that. And what I usually tell people is, if you're having trouble falling asleep, what I usually recommend to my patients is, let's say 1 to 3 milligrams, so 1, 2, or 3 milligrams, depending on how you experience it, a half an hour to an hour before bedtime. Take that if you're having trouble falling asleep. Okay, there are a couple of good brands out there. I don't have any financial stake in them, but there are good ones aside from these. But Twin Labs and Solgar are two of my personal favorites that I recommend, but there are other good ones out there. So that's if you're having trouble falling asleep. So 1, 2, or 3 milligrams, 30 to 60 minutes before bed. Start with 1 if you want to, see how that affects you. If it doesn't do anything, go up to 2 or 3. The main thing to watch out for with melatonin really is how you feel the next day. Do you feel hungover? Do you feel like you've been hit by a truck? If so, maybe cut down the dose. The other thing that it's known for is dreams. So it can be nightmares, very vivid dreams. That can happen with melatonin. So that's if trouble falling asleep. Trouble staying asleep, what I usually recommend is delayed release melatonin. And again, there's a good brand there that I have no financial stake in. I keep having to say that. It's called REM Fresh, R-E-M Fresh. And this is a great brand. They produce 2 and 5 milligram tablets that are delayed release. So what that means is you ingest it, let's say half an hour before bed or right before bed, and it gets released slowly over the course of the night. And that's good if somebody's having trouble staying asleep. Okay? Now the thing to be aware about, though, is anytime you're having trouble staying asleep, or even getting to sleep, truthfully, you always want to make sure that there's not some other sleep disorder that's being missed, particularly in terms of what could be dangerous. If you're waking up frequently throughout the night or waking up abruptly and having trouble getting back to sleep, that could be obstructive sleep apnea. So I'm telling you this information assuming that those things have been ruled out. So if there's any possibility of waking up in the middle of the night and you're not sure why, I would have sleep apnea looked into. Okay, sleep tests are very, very common nowadays, and you really owe it to yourself if there is any possibility to get that done. Okay, but yeah, so melatonin can be useful in either situation, getting to sleep or staying asleep, depending what the problem is, and especially if somebody has not tried anything else prior to this, and they're completely native to any sleep aid. Melatonin is a great thing to start. And fortunately, we're in a place nowadays where people are starting to get more towards trying the natural things, which melatonin fits into that category. Various things that you read online or wherever else, they may say that taking melatonin for longer than 2 weeks is dangerous. I'm not sure where that comes from, truthfully. I think it's kind of ridiculous, and if nothing else, I hope this video can dispel that myth. What I would say, though, is that taking melatonin night after night after night, and there is potentially another sleep problem that's ongoing, that's not being evaluated, yes, that's not a good thing, which is why I said before, if you're taking that melatonin to help you stay asleep, you may be missing things like obstructive sleep apnea. So definitely be aware of that. And for the most part, it is safe. Now, in children, there's some data showing that it could affect puberty and things of that nature, but we're talking about adults here for the most part. So be aware of that. And yeah, I mean, those are basically the nuts and bolts of melatonin. If you guys have any questions or comments about melatonin or anything else, please just leave them in the comment section. I'll try to get to them. So as always, thank you for watching. Thank you for joining me. If you like this video, please click like. Please subscribe to my channel. And for the third time, my book is out there. Please, if you'd like to go get it, please go get it on Amazon. And I will see you guys in the next video.